Hello and welcome to StudyIQ. In this lecture, we will be discussing about the Fugitive Economic Offenders Ordinance of 2018. Fugitive Economic Offenders Ordinance 2018. First of all, let us see what was the background at which this ordinance is being promulgated. So, the background for such a law or such an ordinance is that recently Nirav Modi was involved in a bank fraud, Punjab National Bank fraud, which involved more than 12,000 crore rupees. And what happened was that this person, Nirav Modi, fled from the country and he is in some other country. Since he is outside the jurisdiction of the Indian courts, he is actually escaped. So, in order to further stop such escapes, the government has brought out such a law. And why this has been brought as an ordinance? Why not a bill? In the month of March, this bill, Fugitive Economic Offenders Bill 2017, this was introduced in the Lok Sabha, the lower house of the parliament, and you might have seen in the news regarding the disruptions and frequent adjournments in the Lok Sabha in the previous session, and because of frequent disruptions and adjournments, this bill could not be presented in the parliament and also therefore it was not passed by the parliament. So, what is the solution? To present it as an ordinance. So, what is an ordinance? Let us see that in brief. According to Article 123 of Indian Constitution, the President of India can promulgate ordinances when Parliament is not in session. So, President can promulgate an ordinance when Parliament is not in a session. And what is the condition? The ordinance which is promulgated by the President has to be approved by the Parliament within 6 weeks of its reassembly. So, within 6 weeks of the reassembly, the Parliament has to approve this particular ordinance. So, because in the previous Parliament, it was not able to be presented and also passed by the Parliament, therefore, the government has come out as an ordinance. Now, the Union Cabinet has given approval for the ordinance. So, what is this bill? Fugitive Economic Offenders Bill or the ordinance? What is it all about? So, according to this ordinance or the bill, the government can take the property or seize the property of such offenders. What kind of offenders? Fugitive economic offenders. And we will see who is a fugitive economic offender in this session itself. So, according to this bill or the ordinance, the government can seize or take away the property of economic offenders, fugitive economic offenders. This Fugitive Economic Offenders Ordinance or the bill provides for measures to empower the Indian authorities to attach and confiscate the proceedings of crime. So, this gives measures to empower Indian authorities in order to confiscate the proceedings of crime. Secondly, this also deters the economic offenders from evading the Indian law by remaining outside the jurisdiction of the Indian courts. So, what has happened in Nirav Modi's case? Nirav Modi have evaded the Indian laws. How? He has escaped into some another country and therefore he will not come under the jurisdiction of the Indian law. So, in order to avoid such situations, this law has been brought out. So, the purpose of this bill or the ordinance is to stop the economic offenders who leave the country to avoid due process. So, the purpose is to stop economic offenders who leave the country to avoid due process. So, this is the purpose of the bill. So, one thing you must note here is, this thing is very, very important. So, under this law or under the Fugitive Economic Offenders Bill, those offenders are involved where the amount of the offence is more than 100 crore or more. So, only those offences wherein which 100 crore or more is involved comes under the purview of this law. And now, who is an economic offender? So, in the purview of the law, an economic offender is a person who is categorized as an economic offender under the Indian Penal Code or SEBI Act or Prevention of Corruption Act, Customs Act, Indian Bankruptcy Code, Limited Liability Partnership Act, etc. So, all this will come under economic offenders, the definition of economic offenders. We have seen who is an economic offender. Now, let us see who is a fugitive economic offender. The definition of this fugitive economic offender is given in the section 4 of this particular law, Fugitive Economic Offenders Bill. So, in this particular law, it is included in the Section 4. Under the Section 4 of the Fugitive Economic Offenders Bill, let us see what is the definition. Any person against whom a warrant against a criminal action, any individual against whom any court in India or any court which comes under the Indian jurisdiction has issued an arrest warrant for any scheduled offence. So three things: any individual against whom an arrest warrant is issued by any court in India or inside the Indian jurisdiction for a scheduled offence. So, and two more conditions are given. This is not enough. So, such a person and two more conditions. What are the conditions? First condition is that that person should have left or he leaves India in order to avoid the due process of law or the criminal prosecution. And secondly, he refuses to come back in order to face the criminal prosecution. So, refuses to come back. So, who is a fugitive economic offender? A person against whom a warrant has been issued by any court in the Indian jurisdiction for a scheduled offence, and also that person should have left the country or he is leaving the country in order to avoid the criminal prosecution, and also he is refusing to come back. If he has already left the country, he is refusing to come back to India in order to face the criminal prosecution. Such a person is called as a fugitive economic offender. Now let us see how is a person declared as a fugitive economic offender. So how is this declaration done? For that, the government appoints a director. So the government appoints a director. The director is appointed by the central government, and this director has to file a application in the special court. Special court. So what is the special court? This special court has been set up for the purpose of fugitive economic offenders. So the special court is established under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. So this comes under Prevention of Money Laundering Act. And what is the function of this special court? And this special court will declare a person as fugitive economic offender. So how is a person declared as a fugitive economic offender? First of all, the central government will appoint a director, and this director will give a application to the special court in order to declare a person as a fugitive offender, and by receiving the application, the special court will go through it, and the special court is responsible for declaring a person as a fugitive economic offender. So we said that the director has to issue an application to the special court. Let us see what is this application all about. So under clause 2 of this act, the application must contain certain things. So what are the things which must be included in the application which is given by the director to the special court? First of all, the application should contain the reasons for which a person is being declared as a fugitive economic offender. See, the director appointed by the central government will give the application to the special court. So the director in his application has to mention why this person should be declared as a fugitive economic offender. So first thing is reason. Second thing which must be included in the application is the whereabouts of this offender. So whereabouts of this offender also should be included in the application. The whereabout means information regarding that person. Thirdly, the director should also include list of the properties or the value of the properties, list or value of the properties of this economic offender which is outside and inside the country. So outside and inside the country. So list must be given to the special court. Next, the application should also contain the list of the properties which are owned by the economic offender in India for which the confiscation is sought. So list of properties which is owned by the economic offender in India for which the confiscation is sought. So see, here you must understand that in the previous thing we said that list and value of properties owned by the economic offender inside and outside. So it includes inside as well as outside. But see, the list of the properties for which the confiscation is sought, that is included. So here one point you should remember is that the properties which can be confiscated should be within the territory of India. So this list contains those items or those properties which are sought to be confiscated, and this should be inside the Indian territory. So this point is very important. Also, the director has to produce a list of persons who have interest in those properties. So, those persons who have interest on this properties. This list also should be given along with the application. Here one thing you must remember is that the director appointed by the central government, the director has all the powers to attach any property of the accused person. So the director can attach any property. Now let us look at the procedure, how this is done. The first step is that the court will issue a notice. So the court, as we said, the special court will issue a notice. So this notice is issued to the economic offenders. And one thing you should remember here is that the court will take up the cases which involves at least 100 crores. So 100 crores or more. So the involved amount should be 100 crores or more. So after the court issues the notice, the person or the economic offender is liable to be present at a particular place and particular time within 6 weeks. So within 6 weeks, this economic offender has to be present in a particular time and particular place. And if this person or the accused person, if he does not present himself within 6 weeks of the notice, what will happen is that he will be declared as a fugitive economic offender. So he will be a fugitive economic offender. And the court has issued this notice on the basis of the application given by the director. So the director has already given an application, and on the basis of that only the court has issued this notice. So if the person is declared as a fugitive economic offender, what will happen? The properties as listed in the director's application. We said that the director in his application has to give a list of the properties which are sought to be confiscated. So those properties as listed in the director's application, those properties will be confiscated. Again, the section 11, this is a very important section. Section 11 of this Fugitive Economic Offenders Bill. So, according to the section 11 of the Fugitive Economic Offenders Bill, this disqualifies the fugitive economic offenders for filing or defending a civil claim in the court. So, according to section 11, this disqualifies fugitive economic offenders for what? Filing or defending civil claim. These points you should remember because this can be asked in various exams as MCQs. So, according to this bill, section 11 says that the fugitive economic offender is being disqualified or he cannot file or defend a civil claim in the court. And what will happen after the property is being confiscated? The special court, the court which is involved in this, the special court will appoint an administrator. So, the special court appoints an administrator. What is the responsibility of this administrator? There are mainly two responsibilities of this administrator. One is to oversee the confiscated property, and also second one to dispose of this confiscated property. So dispose of this property. So what will happen after the administrator disposes this property? This will be used to satisfy the creditor's claims. So creditors' claims will be met or satisfied. So who is a creditor? In case of Nirav Modi, the creditor is the Punjab National Bank. So creditor means the person who lends or gives the money. He is the creditor. So the creditor has undergone a loss. So this will be met. The creditor's claims will be met. So this is the procedure mentioned in the bill. So this procedure will be taken up. So now let us see what will be the outcomes. If this procedure is done, what will be the outcome? We said that the administrator will dispose of the confiscated property and the creditor's claims will be met. So who will be the creditors mostly? Banks or financial institutions. So as a result of this banks and financial institutions will have higher recovery. So the recovery of this banks and financial institutions will increase. They will have higher recovery from financial defaults or payment defaults by this fugitive economic offenders. So when there is higher recovery, it means that there is lesser default or the banks will have lesser bad loans. So as an impact, what will happen? The financial health of the bank and financial institutions in the economy will increase. So the financial health will increase. The depositors will have more confidence on the bank. The public will have more confidence with the financial system in the country. The recovered money can be given again as loans. So money supply in the economy would increase. Otherwise this would be considered as bad loans and it is a loss for the bank. Now because the creditors' claims are being satisfied, what will happen? The creditors will again pass on this loan or this money to the general public. So investment in the economy will increase. Therefore, the growth in the economy will increase, employment in the economy will increase, the general public will have confidence in the monetary system or financial system of the economy. Now, let us quickly see what are the other consequences of fugitive economic offenders. We have already seen that fugitive economic offenders leave the country in order to avoid the criminal prosecution. So, one thing is to avoid criminal prosecution. So what are the other consequences except for this economic factors or for the financial factors? This fugitive economic offenders hampers criminal investigation. They also waste the precious time of the courts. So courts' time also wasted. Again they also undermine the rule of law in the country. So rule of law also undermined. So these are just other factors. Just need to understand, that's all. So this is all about Fugitive Economic Offenders Bill of 2017 and now this is being presented as an ordinance. The Union Cabinet has approved the ordinance and the President would promulgate the ordinance.